The conference room fell silent as the holographic display showed another human colony being evacuated. Ambassador David Wright watched families being forced onto transport ships, their belongings left behind, their homes now property of the Dravic Empire. This was the third colony in 2 months. The pattern was always the same. The elder races would find some ancient law, some forgotten regulation, and use it to take what humanity had built. Wright looked around the table at the other ambassadors. Most avoided his eyes. The Dravic representative, Counselor Theron, sat with his scaled arms crossed, a smug expression on his reptilian face. The insectoid High Arbiter Kilon tapped his mandibles together, the sound echoing in the quiet room. "The law is clear," Theron said, his voice carrying that particular tone the elder races used when talking to humans, like speaking to a child who refused to understand simple instructions. "These territories fall under pre-contact claims. Your species arrived too late to contest them. We've been mining those asteroids for 40 years, Wright said, keeping his voice steady. Families live on those stations. You're displacing 15,000 people. Displaced, not harmed, Kilon interjected. The Galactic Council has been most generous in allowing relocation time. 3 full cycles, 3 weeks. They were calling 3 weeks generous. Wright pulled up the reports on his tablet. 5 civilians dead during the last peaceful enforcement action. The elder races called it an accident. Humans called it murder. The difference in perspective was everything. I'm formally protesting this decision, Wright said, knowing it meant nothing. He had filed 63 formal protests in his 8 years as Earth's ambassador. Nothing had changed. Theron laughed, a hissing sound that made Wright's skin crawl. Protest noted and dismissed. Perhaps humanity should focus less on complaining and more on understanding their place in galactic society. Their place. Always their place. Humanity was supposed to be grateful for being allowed into the Galactic Council. Grateful for the restrictions on their military. Grateful for the trade sanctions that kept Earth's economy struggling. Grateful for being treated like ignorant newcomers despite nearly a century of membership. The meeting ended with nothing resolved. It always did. Wright gathered his things and left the chamber, his mind already turning to the secure message he needed to send. Earth Command needed to know about this latest insult. More importantly, Admiral Rebecca Stone needed to know. Halfway across the galaxy, Admiral Stone stood in the command center of humanity's Defense Fleet headquarters, reading Wright's message for the 3rd time. Each word made the anger in her chest burn hotter, but she kept her face calm. Good commanders didn't show emotion when others were watching. Another colony gone, Captain Omar Hassan said quietly beside her. He had served under Stone for 12 years, fought in the colony wars when human settlements had to defend themselves from pirates and raiders. Back then, the elder races had watched and done nothing, claiming it was humanity's problem to solve. How many does that make? Stone asked, though she knew the answer. 11 colonies seized, 17 mining operations shut down, and countless trade routes blocked in the past 5 years. Hassan replied, "It's getting worse." Stone dismissed the message and pulled up a different file, one marked with the highest security clearance. Project Valkyrie. For 50 years, Earth had been preparing for this moment. While the elder races assumed humanity was imitating their technology, human scientists had been creating something entirely new. Weapons systems based on Earth's own history of warfare. Tactics the galaxy had never seen. Ships designed not to match alien specifications but to exploit their weaknesses. "Send a message to Dr. Cross at Terra Nova," Stone said. "Tell her we need that research compiled and ready to present. Everything about the suppression," Hassan nodded, understanding immediately. Dr. Helen Cross had spent years digging through Galactic Council records, finding proof that the elder races had actively worked to keep humanity weak. Patents denied. Research blocked. Technologies mysteriously classified as dangerous right when human scientists approached breakthroughs. "Are we really doing this?" Hassan asked. "The government hasn't decided yet," Stone replied, "but we need to be ready." That evening, 4 people met in a secure room deep beneath Earth's capital. No recording devices, no electronic communications. Just 4 humans who had finally reached their breaking point. Ambassador Wright spoke first, his diplomatic calm cracking to show the frustration beneath. "They're never going to respect us. We could wait another 100 years and they'd still treat us like children. The question is what we do about it," Premier Li Wang said. The leader of United Earth government looked older than his 60 years, the weight of representing 8 billion humans showing in every line on his face. Dr. Cross spread her research across the table. Documents, communications, proof of the conspiracy that had held humanity back. This is enough to cause a political crisis in the council, she said. If we release it, and if we don't, Wang asked. Then we keep playing by their rules, Stone said. We keep losing colonies. Keep accepting restrictions. Keep being treated as inferior. The room fell silent. Everyone knew what the alternative meant. War, humanity against the elder races. It should have been unthinkable. Humanity was outnumbered, outgunned by conventional measures, facing species that had been spacefaring for thousands of years. But Stone had seen the secret projects. She knew what humanity had built while the elder races weren't paying attention. The question wasn't whether they could fight. The question was whether they should. There's another option, Wright said slowly. We withdraw from the council, formally, give them notice and end our membership. They'll see it as a declaration of war, Hassan said. Maybe, Wright agreed. Or maybe they'll realize we're serious, that we're not going to keep accepting this treatment. Wang looked at each of them in turn. If we do this, there's no going back. The galaxy will change. War might come whether we want it or not. It's already here, Stone said quietly. They just haven't admitted it yet. Every colony they take, every restriction they impose, every time they dismiss our concerns. That's war. Just a slow, quiet one where we're the only ones bleeding. The Premier of Earth took a long breath and made a decision that would echo across the galaxy. Draft the withdrawal notice. We'll give them 30 days as protocol requires. After that, humanity stands alone. Ambassador Wright would deliver the message in 2 days. The galaxy would learn that humanity was done being pushed around, done accepting their assigned place, done being treated as less than equal. The elder races thought they knew humanity. They had no idea what was coming. News traveled fast in the galaxy, but disbelief traveled faster. When Earth's withdrawal notice hit the Galactic Council's communication networks, most species assumed it was a mistake. Some kind of clerical error. Humanity wouldn't actually leave the council. They needed the elder races more than the elder races needed them. Councillor Theron sat in his private chambers on the Dravik homeworld, reading the official document for the 5th time. His clawed hand crumpled the datapad's edge. 30 days. Earth was giving the council 30 days before complete withdrawal. No conditions. No negotiations. Just a simple statement that humanity would no longer participate in a system that treated them as inferior. They're bluffing, his military advisor said. A younger Dravik named Kron. This is a negotiation tactic. They want better trade terms. Theron wasn't so sure. He had seen Wright's face during that last meeting. The human ambassador hadn't looked like someone planning to negotiate. He had looked like someone who had finally stopped caring about diplomacy. Mobilize the 3rd Fleet, Theron ordered. If humanity wants to play games, we'll remind them why junior species don't challenge elder races. Across the galaxy, High Arbiter Quilon called an emergency session of the Galactic Council. Representatives from 24 species gathered in the Grand Chamber, their voices creating a cacophony of confusion and concern. Some species sided with humanity, quietly sympathizing with their frustration. Others saw the withdrawal as an insult that demanded response. Order, Quilon's voice cut through the noise. Earth has submitted formal withdrawal. Under Council law, they have 30 days to reconsider. During this time, we must determine our response. Response? A representative from one of the younger species spoke up, her furred face showing genuine confusion. Shouldn't we be asking why they're leaving? Maybe addressing their concerns? Theron's laugh echoed through the chamber. Their concerns? They're upset because we enforce galactic law, because we maintain order. Humanity has always been emotional and reckless. This just proves they're not ready for true civilization. They've been members for 89 years, another voice called out. How much longer until they're ready in your eyes? The debate raged for hours, but Theron had already made his decision. The Dravik Empire would not let this insult stand. If Earth wanted to leave the Council, they would learn the consequences of abandoning galactic society. 2 other elder races, the Korthan and the Vryn, agreed. Their combined fleets would enter human space and force Earth to reconsider. Not through violence, of course. Just a show of force. A reminder of reality. On Earth, Premier Wang addressed the planet and all human colonies in a broadcast that would be remembered for centuries. He stood not at a podium but in front of a window showing Earth below, blue and green and precious. For 89 years, we've tried to be good members of galactic society, Wang began, his voice carrying to 8 billion humans and another 2 billion in the colonies. We've followed laws written before our grandparents were born. We've accepted restrictions on our growth, our economy, our military. We've watched our people displaced from homes they built with their own hands. We've done all of this because we believed in cooperation, in peace, in finding our place among the stars. He paused, letting the words sink in. But there's a difference between cooperation and submission, between peace and surrender, between finding your place and accepting someone else's judgment of your worth. The Galactic Council has made it clear they will never see us as equals. So we're done trying to convince them. In 30 days, humanity stands alone. And we're ready. The broadcast ended, but its effects rippled across human space. Military recruitment centers were flooded with volunteers. Colony defense forces went on high alert. Scientists at research facilities began activating projects that had been theoretical for decades. Humanity had spent nearly a century preparing for this moment, even if most people hadn't realized it. General Sarah Martinez stood in the war room beneath Earth's military headquarters, surrounded by holographic displays showing every human ship, station, and settlement. She had spent 40 years in military intelligence and the last 20 running Project Valkyrie. Now it was time to reveal what they had built. "Show them," she said to her staff. The displays changed. New ships appeared in the readouts, ships that hadn't existed in any official registry. Weapon systems that used quantum entanglement in ways the elder races had dismissed as impossible. Defense networks that employed artificial intelligence at a level the Council had banned as dangerous. Humanity had followed the Council's rules in public while breaking everyone in secret. "How many know about this?" Admiral Stone asked. She had arrived from Fleet headquarters an hour ago, her shuttle burning through Earth's atmosphere at speeds that would have alarmed civilians. "Maybe 2,000 people," Martinez replied. "Scientists, engineers, a few key military personnel. We've kept it compartmentalized." "And you're sure it works?" Martinez smiled, an expression that didn't reach her eyes. "We've been testing it for 20 years. The elder races think we're primitive because we're young. They forget that humanity spent 10,000 years perfecting warfare on Earth before we ever reached space. They fight with honor and formation. We fight to win." The Dravik fleet entered human space 12 days into the 30-day countdown. Theron himself commanded from the flagship, confident that his show of force would bring the humans to their senses. 63 warships, enough firepower to level a continent. The fleet approached the outer colony of New Perth, expecting to find frightened civilians begging for protection. Instead, they found Admiral Stone waiting. Her voice came through on all frequencies, calm and cold. "This is Admiral Rebecca Stone of Earth Defense Command. You are in violation of human territory. I am authorized to use any means necessary to remove you. Turn back now. This is your only warning." Theron couldn't help but laugh. One woman making demands of 63 warships. The arrogance was almost admirable. "Admiral Stone," he replied, his voice dripping with condescension. "I appreciate your bravery, but please be realistic. You have no fleet here, no defense. Submit to Council authority and this can end peacefully." There was a pause. Then Stone spoke again, and something in her voice made Theron's scales prickle with unease. "No fleet you can see," she said. "That's the problem with your ancient sensor technology. You only detect what you expect to find." The first Dravik ship exploded before Theron could process her words. Then another. Then 5 more in rapid succession. His tactical display showed nothing. No ships, no weapons fire, no explanation for how his fleet was being torn apart by an invisible enemy. "All ships. Evasive maneuvers," Theron shouted, but it was too late. Whatever humanity had unleashed, it moved faster than his ships could react. In 5 minutes, 27 vessels were destroyed or crippled. The survivors retreated, their sensor logs showing nothing but empty space where the attacks came from. Stone's voice followed them out of human territory. "I warned you. Now go tell your council what happens when you push humanity again." Theron sat in his damaged flagship, staring at the casualty reports. Thousands dead, billions in destroyed ships, and he still didn't understand what had hit them. For the first time in his long life, the Dravik counselor felt something he had never associated with humanity: fear. Commander Yuki Tanaka pulled her fighter through a barrel roll that would have killed most pilots. The G-forces pushing against her body, even through the inertial dampeners. Behind her, 3 Korthan interceptors tried to match her movements and failed. Their ships were faster in straight lines, but human pilots had one advantage the elder races never anticipated: creativity. Blue 3, "You've got 2 on your tail," her wingman called out. "Not for long," Tanaka replied, cutting her engines completely. The fighter went dark, momentum carrying it forward while the Korthan ships overshot her position. She reignited the engines, locked onto their exposed rear sections, and fired. Both interceptors exploded before their pilots realized what happened. This was the 3rd engagement in the past week. After the disaster at New Perth, the elder races had regrouped and come back with more ships. They assumed overwhelming numbers would compensate for whatever trick humanity had used. They were wrong. Colonel James Reeves moved through the darkened corridor of the Dravik cruiser, his combat suit rendering him nearly invisible. The technology had existed for decades, but the Galactic Council had classified it as too dangerous for warfare. They believed in honorable combat, in enemies facing each other openly. Humanity believed in winning. Behind him, his team of 12 Special Operations soldiers moved silently. They had boarded the cruiser 15 minutes ago using an insertion pod that the Dravik sensors couldn't detect. Another gift from Project Valkyrie, another trick the elder races never saw coming. "Bridge is 2 levels up," Reeves whispered through the secure comm. "Remember non-lethal when possible. We want prisoners, not martyrs." The team split into 3 groups, each taking a different route. Reeves had studied the ship layouts that Earth intelligence had gathered over decades. The elder races used the same designs for centuries, never innovating, never adapting. It made them predictable. The bridge doors were sealed, but human cutting technology made short work of the lock. Reeves and his team burst through, weapons raised. The Dravik crew barely had time to react before stunner rounds knocked them unconscious. In 90 seconds, the cruiser's command crew was subdued and the ship was under human control. "This is Reeves to command," he spoke into his comm. "Package secured. 1 cruiser captured, 0 casualties on our side." Admiral Stone's voice came back. "Good work, Colonel. That makes 4 capital ships captured this week. The elder races still don't understand what they're fighting." She was right. The Galactic Council had spent thousands of years fighting wars according to strict rules. Formations honor predictable tactics. They engaged in space battles like ancient naval combat, ships lining up to exchange fire until one side retreated. Humanity had spent 10,000 years learning every dirty trick, every unconventional tactic, every way to win when you were outgunned. The elder races fought wars. Humans fought to survive. Back on Earth, Dr. Helen Cross stood before the Galactic Council's public communication network, ready to release the information that would change everything. General Martinez had given her approval. Premier Wang had given his blessing. Now it was time for the galaxy to learn the truth. "My name is Dr. Helen Cross," she began, her image broadcasting to billions of beings across hundreds of worlds. "For the past 8 years, I've been researching Galactic Council records. What I found was proof of a systematic conspiracy to suppress human development." She pulled up documents on the screen behind her. Communications between council members, orders to deny human patent applications, directives to classify human research as dangerous, a coordinated effort spanning decades to keep humanity weak and dependent. "The council has been sabotaging us since the day we joined," Cross continued. "Every time human scientists approached a breakthrough, it was suddenly classified. Every time we tried to innovate, we were told it violated some ancient law. The elder races kept us down because they were afraid that if we were allowed to develop freely, we would expose how stagnant they've become." The broadcasts reached every corner of the galaxy. On worlds where junior species had suffered similar treatment, protest erupted. The elder races' carefully maintained image of benevolent guidance shattered. Younger species began demanding answers, demanding equality, demanding change. High Arbiter Kelon watched his carefully ordered galaxy fall apart. Riots on 3 worlds, 2 junior species threatening their own withdrawal from the Council. Internal investigations launched into Council corruption, all because of 1 human woman and her research. "We need to end this," Kelon said to the assembled Council members. "The humans are tearing apart everything we've built." "Then let's destroy them," Theron snarled. His scales still bore scars from the New Perth disaster, a constant reminder of his humiliation. "Mobilize the core fleet. Show them what real power looks like." That's what they want, a voice called out. Counselor Nera, a younger member from a species that had only joined the council 2 centuries ago, stood up. They're goading us into escalation. Every attack we make, they counter. Every fleet we send, they destroy. Maybe we should be asking why we're so desperate to fight a war we keep losing. We're not losing, Theron roared. We're just learning their tactics. The core fleet will crush them. The core fleet launched 3 days later. Over 500 ships drawn from the 3 elder races most insulted by humanity's rebellion. It was the largest military force assembled in 200 years. Surely, Theron thought, humanity couldn't stand against such overwhelming power. Admiral Stone watched the elder race fleet approaching on her tactical display. 500 ships. She had 50 vessels in position. The rest of the human fleet scattered across the colonies on defense. On paper, it was no contest. But humanity had stopped fighting on paper decades ago. Deploy the swarm, she ordered. From asteroid fields and hidden bases throughout the outer system, thousands of small craft emerged. Not ships exactly. Autonomous drones linked together through quantum entanglement, moving as a single coordinated entity. The elder races had developed drones centuries ago but abandoned them, finding the technology unreliable. Human engineers had perfected what the aliens had given up on. The swarm hit the elder race fleet like a hurricane. Individual drones were small and lightly armed, but there were thousands of them and they moved with perfect coordination. They swarmed capital ships targeting weapon systems and engines. They drew fire away from human vessels, then dispersed and reformed in new patterns. They learned from each engagement, their AI systems adapting faster than organic commanders could respond. Fleet Admiral Cross, commanding the Dravik portion of the fleet, watched in horror as his ships were overwhelmed. He had fought in 20 campaigns over his long career. He had commanded fleets in 3 wars. Nothing had prepared him for this. It was like fighting smoke or shadows or some elemental force that couldn't be killed or stopped. All ships fall back to Formation Delta, he ordered, trying to implement some structure, but the swarm didn't care about formations. It flowed around them, through them, breaking the careful order into chaos. Commander Tanaka led her squadron through the confusion, targeting the elder race command ships. Human fighters were outnumbered 50 to 1, but they didn't need superiority. They just needed to be unpredictable. She spun her ship through a gap between 2 Korthan destroyers, locked onto a cruiser's bridge, and fired. The cruiser's command deck exploded, the ship going dark and dead in space. Tanaka didn't celebrate. There were 100 more targets and her squadron was already moving to the next one. By the time the elder race fleet retreated, they had lost over 200 ships. The human casualties, 15 drones destroyed, 3 fighters damaged, 0 deaths. It wasn't a battle. It was a demonstration of how far humanity had surpassed their so-called superiors. Admiral Stone opened a channel to Fleet Admiral Cross as his damaged flagship limped away. She had met him once years ago at a diplomatic function. He had been polite but dismissive, treating her like a child playing at military command. Now his face on the screen showed something different: respect and fear. "This is your final warning," Stone said, her voice carrying across the void between fleets. "Go home. Tell your council that humanity will not be pushed again. Tell them that if they come back, we won't just defeat you, we'll end you." Cross said nothing. He just nodded, a small gesture from a warrior who finally understood he was beaten. His fleet continued its retreat, leaving behind debris and the wreckage of galactic certainty. The elder races had believed themselves invincible. Humanity had proven them wrong. Now the only question was whether the lesson would be learned before more blood was spilled. The war had been going for 3 weeks and the Dravik Empire was bleeding. Theron sat in his war room, staring at casualty reports that made no sense. His species had ruled a quarter of the galaxy for 3,000 years. They had crushed rebellions, conquered worlds, and established an order that had lasted longer than humanity had been literate. Now a species barely a century into space travel was dismantling everything. "We've lost 60% of our expeditionary forces," his aide reported, the younger Dravik's voice trembling. "The council members are beginning to question the campaign." "Then we send more ships," Theron said, his claws digging into the armrest of his chair. "We mobilize the home defense fleet. We show these primates what real power looks like." But even as he spoke, Theron felt the certainty cracking. Every fleet they sent came back smaller, damaged, demoralized. Every engagement proved that humanity had been studying the elder races while pretending to be students. The Dravik fought with honor and tradition. Humans fought with tricks and traps and tactics that no honorable species would consider. Across the galaxy, the political situation was deteriorating faster than the military one. Counselor Nera stood before the Galactic Council, holding a datapad filled with testimonies from junior species. Stories of suppression, evidence of systematic discrimination, proof that the elder races had been maintaining their power not through superiority but through control. The humans aren't the problem, Nera said, her voice carrying through the chamber. They're the symptom. We've spent millennia telling ourselves we're enlightened, that we've evolved beyond the barbarism of youth, but we've just hidden it behind bureaucracy and ancient laws. This is not the time for philosophical debate, Keelan interjected, his mandibles clicking with agitation. We are at war. A war we started, Nera countered. A war we're losing. Maybe instead of sending more ships to die, we should ask why we're fighting in the first place. The chamber erupted in argument. Half the council wanted to escalate, to prove that elder races couldn't be challenged. The other half was beginning to realize that the old order was crumbling whether they liked it or not. Junior species that had been silent for centuries were finding their voices. The humans had done more than defeat a few fleets. They had shown every suppressed species in the galaxy that the elder races could bleed. Premier Wang sat in his office on Earth, reading intelligence reports from across human space. The news was better than he had dared hope, and worse than he had feared. Better because humanity was winning every military engagement. Worse because he knew what came next. They're going to escalate, General Martinez said, standing beside his desk. Theron's ego won't let him back down. He'll send everything he has. The home defense fleet, Wang said quietly, 10 times the size of what they've sent already. We can beat them, Martinez said with confidence. Our technology advantage is absolute. That's what I'm afraid of, Wang replied. He pulled up a star map showing Dravik space. Dozens of worlds, billions of lives, a civilization 3,000 years old. If we destroy their home defense fleet, we effectively conquer them. Even if we don't occupy their worlds, we'll have that power. And power like that changes you. Martinez was quiet for a moment. You're worried we'll become them. I'm worried about what we have to do to win, Wang said, and what it costs us. Admiral Stone stood on the bridge of the newly christened EDS Defiance, humanity's first purpose-built warship to operate openly. No more hiding, no more pretending to follow council restrictions. The ship represented everything humanity had learned in a century of secret development. It was smaller than elder race capital ships, but faster, more maneuverable, and armed with weapons that didn't exist in any Galactic Council database. Admiral, we're receiving a transmission from the Dravik Home Defense Fleet, her communications officer reported. They're 3 days out from human space. Put it through, Stone ordered. Fleet Admiral Cross appeared on the main screen. He looked older than when she had last seen him, worn down by losses and the weight of command. Admiral Stone, I'm authorized to inform you that the Dravik Empire is mobilizing its full military capacity. We have over 5,000 ships incoming. Your resistance, while admirable, cannot stand against such force. Surrender now and we will show mercy. Stone studied his face, looking for the arrogance she had seen in other elder race commanders. She didn't find it. Cross looked tired, desperate. A warrior following orders he knew were wrong because duty demanded it. Admiral Cross, Stone replied carefully, I'm going to tell you something and I need you to really hear it. We don't want this war. We never did. All we wanted was to be treated as equals, to be respected. If your fleet enters human space, we will destroy it. Not because we're cruel, but because we have no choice. Don't make us do this. Cross was silent for a long moment. Then he spoke, and his voice carried the weight of 3,000 years of history. It's not my decision to make. The Council has ordered this action. I follow my orders. Even when those orders lead to the death of your people? Especially then, Cross said. Duty is all that separates us from chaos. The transmission ended. Stone turned to her crew, seeing the tension in their faces. They were good people, most of them young enough to have never known Earth before the stars. They had grown up believing in peaceful coexistence. Now they were preparing to fight the largest battle in human history. Prepare the fleet, Stone ordered. And send a message to all our stealth units in Dravik space. Activate Contingency Plan Omega. Captain Hassan appeared at her side. Admiral, Omega means targeting civilian infrastructure. Are you sure? I'm not targeting anything, Stone said quietly. I'm positioning assets. Let me show Cross what we could do if we wanted to. Maybe it will make him think twice. The message went out across quantum-entangled channels to 50 human stealth ships, positioned throughout Dravik space. They had been there for months, hidden by technology the elder races couldn't detect, watching and waiting. Each ship was positioned near critical infrastructure. Power stations, communication hubs, orbital shipyards. Not weapons, but the backbone of civilization. Stone opened a channel to Cross again. This time she sent him coordinates. 50 sets of numbers showing exactly where her ships were, showing exactly what they could destroy if they chose to. I want you to understand something, Stone said when Cross appeared on screen again, his face showing shock as he processed the coordinates. We could have hit these targets weeks ago. We could have crippled your civilization before you mobilized your first fleet. We chose not to because we're not monsters. But if you bring 5,000 ships to our borders, if you force our hand, we won't just defeat you in battle. We'll make sure you can never threaten us again. She leaned forward, making sure he saw the absolute certainty in her eyes. This is your choice, Admiral. Come at us with everything you have and watch your civilization burn. Or go home and maybe we can find another way. Cross stared at the coordinates, understanding the trap he had walked into. The humans hadn't just prepared to fight a defensive war. They had prepared to end the Dravik Empire completely if necessary. And they were showing him the knife before they used it, giving him one last chance to step back from the edge. I need to consult with my government, Cross said finally. You have 48 hours, Stone replied. After that, my ships start sending updated positions every 6 hours. Eventually you'll find them, but not before they've completed their mission. The transmission ended. Stone sat back in her command chair, feeling the weight of what she had just done. She had threatened to destroy an entire civilization. 3,000 years of history. Billions of lives. The Dravik were arrogant and cruel, but they were still people. Still beings with families and hopes and dreams. Do you think he'll listen? Hassan asked quietly. I don't know, Stone admitted, but I had to try. Because if that fleet comes, if we have to actually fight this battle, the galaxy will never be the same, and neither will we. The Dravik homeworld had never known fear before. For 3,000 years, their civilization had been the hammer, not the anvil. They conquered. They ruled. They enforced order on a chaotic galaxy. Now, for the first time in recorded history, they faced an enemy that could reach into their home and tear everything down. Fleet Admiral Cross stood before the Dravik High Council, the coordinates of human stealth ships displayed behind him. Each point of light represented a potential catastrophe. The silence in the chamber was absolute, broken only by the clicking of claws against stone as counselors shifted nervously. They're bluffing, Theron said, but his voice lacked its usual conviction. Humans don't have the stomach for genocide. They've shown restraint in every engagement. That's what makes this so effective, Cross replied, his voice heavy with exhaustion. They're not threatening to kill our people. They're threatening to cripple our civilization, destroy our shipyards, and we can't rebuild our fleet. Take out our power infrastructure and our cities go dark. Hit our communication networks and our empire fragments. They can end us without firing a single shot at a civilian target. An older counselor, her scales white with age, spoke up. How did they get ships past our defenses? They've been there for months, possibly years, Cross admitted. While we were busy dismissing them as primitives, they were mapping every system, analyzing every weakness, preparing for a war we thought they could never win. Then we find them and destroy them, Theron snarled. With what? Cross demanded, his patience finally breaking. Our sensors can't detect them. Our fleets can't catch them. Every time we engage human forces, we lose. We've lost 60% of our military strength in 3 weeks. 60%. Against a species we outnumber 10-1. At what point do we admit that we're beaten? The chamber erupted in argument. Some counselors demanded total war, willing to risk everything rather than accept defeat. Others called for negotiation, recognizing that pride was no substitute for survival. The Dravik Empire was fracturing, torn between ancient arrogance and new reality. On Earth, Dr. Cross watched the reports coming in from across the galaxy. The information she had released was causing ripples that went far beyond the military conflict. Junior species were demanding reform. Some were threatening to leave the council themselves. The old order was collapsing and nobody knew what would replace it. You started something bigger than you intended, Ambassador Wright said, sitting across from her in the small cafe near Earth's government district. They had become unlikely friends during the crisis, two people trying to build something better from the wreckage. I just told the truth, Cross replied, stirring her coffee absently. The elder races built their power on suppression and control. Once everyone knew the facade couldn't hold. The question is what comes next, Wright said. If the Dravik fall, if we actually have to execute those threats, the galaxy will see us as conquerors. Every species will fear us. Is that better than the old system? Cross had been asking herself the same question. Humanity had fought for respect, for equality, for the right to exist without constant humiliation. But somewhere along the way, the fight had escalated into something darker. Now they stood on the edge of committing atrocities in the name of self-defense. The line between victim and villain was thinner than she wanted to admit. Maybe there's still another way, Cross said quietly. Premier Wang was thinking the same thing. He sat in a secure conference room with his closest advisors, reviewing options that all looked equally terrible. Attack and become the monsters they were fighting against, back down, and prove that humanity's resolve was as weak as the elder races claimed. Continue the standoff and watch the galaxy tear itself apart. There's a fourth option, General Martinez suggested. We offer them a way out. Not surrender, but transformation. Explain, Wang said. The elder races can't accept defeat from humanity, Martinez said, pulling up a political map of the galaxy. Their entire identity is built on superiority. But what if we give them a different narrative? What if this isn't about humanity defeating them, but about the galaxy evolving past the old system? Wang considered it. You're suggesting we turn this into a revolution instead of a war. We're already doing that, Martinez replied. Every junior species watching this conflict is questioning their place. Every suppressed civilization is wondering why they accepted elder race rule. We're not just fighting the Dravik. We're dismantling 3,000 years of systemic control. If we can frame this as galactic progress rather than human victory, maybe the elder races can accept change without seeing it as defeat. It was a thin thread to hang hope on, but Wang had learned to take what he could get. He sent a message to Ambassador Wright. Prepare a new proposal for the Galactic Council. Not terms of surrender, but a framework for a new system. One where species earned respect through action, not age. Where junior and senior members had equal voices. Where the old hierarchies were replaced with actual democracy. Fleet Admiral Cross received the proposal 36 hours into Stone's 48-hour deadline. He read it 3 times looking for the trap but couldn't find one. The humans were offering to step back from the brink, to turn the military conflict into a political transformation. They would withdraw their stealth ships if the Dravik would support council reform. It's a trick, Theron insisted when Cross brought the proposal to the High Council. They're trying to divide us. No, Cross said slowly. They're offering us something more valuable than victory. They're offering us relevance. Think about it. If we keep fighting, we lose. Our military is broken, our reputation is shattered, and every species in the galaxy questions our authority. But if we accept this proposal, if we lead the reform instead of resisting it, we become part of the solution instead of the problem. You want us to surrender, Theron said, his voice dripping with disgust. I want us to survive, Cross replied. 3,000 years of history, billions of lives, an entire civilization. That's what's at stake. Is your pride worth more than all of that? The debate in the Dravik High Council lasted 18 hours. Some counselors like Theron refused to accept anything less than total human submission. Others recognized that the galaxy had changed, and they could either change with it or be left behind. In the end, the pragmatists won by a narrow margin. Theron abstained from the final vote, a gesture that spoke volumes. He couldn't bring himself to support the proposal, but he also couldn't vote to destroy his own civilization. He simply stood and left the chamber, his tail dragging behind him in defeat. Counselor Nara led the reform faction in the Galactic Council, crafting a new charter with input from species that had been silent for centuries. The elder races would keep their seats but lose their veto power. Military restrictions would be lifted for all species. Trade would be free and equal. Most importantly, the title of elder and junior would be abolished. Every species would simply be a member, judged by their contributions rather than their age. It wasn't perfect. The elder races still held enormous influence through sheer size and resources, but it was better than the old system, and infinitely better than watching civilizations burn. Admiral Stone received the ceasefire order 45 hours into her deadline. The Dravik Home Defense Fleet had turned back. The Council had voted to accept reforms. The war was over, at least for now. She sent the recall code to her stealth ships, pulling them back from Dravik infrastructure. Part of her felt relief. Another part felt disappointment. They had been so close to proving humanity's absolute superiority, to showing the galaxy that Earth could crush anyone who challenged them. But that path led nowhere good. Victory through intimidation was just another form of tyranny. "It's over," Captain Hassan said beside her. "No," Stone replied, watching the Dravik fleet retreat on her displays. "It's just beginning. We've torn down the old order. Now we have to prove we can build something better." Dr. Cross stood before the new Galactic Council, no longer in secret but as an official representative of Earth. Beside her were representatives from a dozen junior species, all working together to craft the future. "We have an opportunity," Cross said to the assembled delegates, "to create a galaxy where no species lives in fear of suppression, where innovation is celebrated, not controlled, where different doesn't mean inferior. It won't be easy. Old habits die hard, and there will be those who resist change, but we've seen what the alternative looks like. War, death, civilization teetering on the edge of destruction." She paused, meeting the eyes of elder and former junior species alike. "We can do better. We must do better. And if we work together, we will." The applause was hesitant at first, then grew stronger. Not everyone believed. Not everyone was ready to accept the new order. But it was a start. 1 year after the ceasefire, Ambassador David Wright walked through the halls of the new Galactic Federation headquarters. The building was different from the old council chambers. Smaller, more efficient, designed with input from all member species rather than just reflecting elder race aesthetics. It was a physical representation of how much had changed. The war had lasted 47 days total. Humanity had lost 8,900 military personnel and 2,100 civilians. The elder races had lost 47,000 soldiers and countless ships. The numbers told only part of the story. The real casualty was the old certainty, the ancient assumption that age equaled superiority. Right past a memorial wall listing the names of the fallen. Human names alongside Dravik, Korthan, Vryn, all equal in death regardless of species or side. He stopped at one name in particular, Lieutenant Amy Wright, his daughter. She had been a fighter pilot, killed in the 3rd week of fighting when her squadron ran into an ambush. The elder races learned eventually, adapted their tactics, not fast enough to win but enough to make humanity bleed. "I think about them every day," a voice said beside him. Fleet Admiral Cross stood there, his scales showing the scars of battle. He had retired from active duty, but stayed involved in the transition as a military advisor. "The ones we lost because of pride, because we couldn't admit we were wrong." "She believed in what we were fighting for," Wright said quietly. "Told me before she deployed that some things were worth the risk. I just wish the elder races had listened before it came to this." Cross nodded slowly. "We were taught from hatching that our way was the only way. 3,000 years of tradition. It's hard to admit that tradition can be wrong. Your daughter died a warrior. That's something our species can understand." They stood together in silence, two fathers mourning losses that never should have happened. The memorial wall was a reminder that peace had come at a terrible price. But it was also a promise that those deaths would not be meaningless. Premier Wang gave what would be his final address as leader of United Earth Government. He had decided not to seek another term, feeling that the galaxy needed new leadership for its new era. His hair had gone completely white during the war, stress aging him beyond his years. 1 year ago, humanity stood at the brink, Wang said to the assembled crowd in Geneva. Behind him, screens showed the ceremony being broadcast to all human colonies and across the galaxy. "We faced a choice between submission and destruction. We chose neither. Instead, we fought for something more difficult, transformation." He paused, gathering his thoughts. "The Galactic Federation is not perfect. There are still tensions between species, still disagreements about how to move forward. But we're arguing as equals now. That's worth everything we paid to achieve it." Wang announced the formation of the Joint Defense Initiative, a military alliance between 30 species committed to mutual protection. No single species would dominate. No elder race would have special privileges. If any member was threatened, all would respond. It was based on human military alliances from centuries ago, updated for galactic scale. Admiral Rebecca Stone took command of the initiative's first joint task force. Standing on the bridge of her flagship, she watched her crew working alongside Dravik, Korthan, and officers from a dozen other species. It was awkward at first. Old prejudices died hard, but they were learning. "Admiral, we have a situation in the outer reaches," her communications officer reported. "Pirate attack on a civilian convoy. Mixed species, including human ships. All ships, battle station," Stone ordered. "Helm, set course to intercept. And someone wake up our Dravik tactical officer. I want to see if their combat doctrine has improved." The Dravik officer, a young warrior named Sith, appeared on the bridge moments later. "I heard that, Admiral," he said, a hint of amusement in his voice. "We learn from the best. Even if the best are primates who fight without honor." "We fight to win," Stone replied, grinning. "Stick with us long enough and you might too." It was small moments like this that made Stone believe peace might actually last. Not because everyone suddenly loved each other, but because they were building something together. Shared missions created shared purpose. Working side by side created understanding that no treaty could mandate. Dr. Helen Cross stood in the main hall of the Galactic Research Institute, looking up at the central display showing collaborative projects from across the Federation. Technology that had been suppressed or hidden was now being shared freely. Human quantum entanglement systems were being integrated with Korthan sensor networks. Dravik structural engineering was being combined with human AI development. Progress that should have happened decades ago was finally possible. "Penny, for your thoughts?" Colonel Reeves asked, walking up beside her. He had retired from special operations and now served as head of security for the Institute. "I was thinking about all the time we wasted," Cross said. "All the years we could have been working together instead of working against each other. My research, the proof of suppression, it showed decades of lost potential. Makes me angry even now. But it also showed us the cost of pride," Reeves replied. "Every species that comes through here sees what was lost. Maybe that's worth something. A reminder of what happens when fear drives policy." Cross nodded. "The younger species get it. They're excited to collaborate, to learn, to share. It's the older ones, the ones who remember the old system, they're the holdouts." "Give them time," Reeves said, "or wait for them to retire. Either way, the galaxy is moving forward whether they like it or not." On the Dravik homeworld, Theron sat in his private chambers watching the Federation news broadcasts. He had been voted out of his position after the war, replaced by younger counselors who embraced reform. Part of him was bitter. The other part was tired. A message came through from his grandson, serving in the Joint Defense Initiative under Admiral Stone. The young Dravik spoke excitedly about new tactics he was learning, about the honor he found in serving alongside former enemies. He didn't understand the old ways, didn't care about the traditions Theron had spent his life defending. Maybe that was for the best. Theron had lived through the Empire's greatest glory and its greatest humiliation. His grandson would build something new. Whether that was better or worse, only time would tell. Commander Yuki Tanaka took a group of young pilots from multiple species through combat training simulations. She had been promoted and now taught at the Federation's Joint Military Academy. Her students included humans, Dravik, Korthan, and others. "The key to human fighter tactics is unpredictability," she explained, running a simulation where one fighter faced 3 opponents. "See how the pilot breaks all formation rules? That's not recklessness. That's creativity. Your enemies expect you to follow doctrine. When you don't, you have the advantage." A Dravik student raised his clawed hand. "But what about honor? What about facing your enemy directly?" Tanaka smiled. "There's honor in protecting your wingmen. Honor in completing your mission. Honor in coming home alive. How you do it matters less than why. We're not teaching you to fight like humans. We're teaching you to fight like people who want to win and survive. The rest is up to you." The lesson continued. Young warriors from across the galaxy learning tactics that would have been unthinkable a year ago. It was messy and imperfect, but it was progress. Ambassador Wright stood before the Federation Council in its first regular session of the new year. The chamber was full, every species represented, every voice theoretically equal. Reality was more complicated. The elder races still had more ships, more resources, more political experience, but they couldn't simply dictate terms anymore. Today we vote on the Outer Reach Settlement Act, Wright announced. 15 colonies on disputed territory. The old council would have assigned them based on ancient claims. We're proposing they be given to the species currently living there, regardless of who thinks they own the system. The debate was fierce. Some elder races argued for traditional property rights. Newer members argued for practical recognition of current reality. In the end, the vote came down to a single ballot. The settlements went to their current inhabitants. It was a small victory, but it established a precedent. Occupation and development mattered more than ancient maps. The future had more weight than the past. Captain Omar Hassan visited the memorial wall before leaving on his next assignment. He had been promoted to admiral, taking over Stone's old position at Earth Defense Command. His hand touched the names of friends lost in the 47 days of war. "We did it," he said quietly to the dead. "Built something better. Doesn't bring you back, but maybe it means you didn't die for nothing." A young ensign approached, clearing his throat nervously. "Admiral Hassan, sorry to interrupt, sir. They're ready for you at the transport." Hassan nodded, taking one last look at the wall. The names would stay there forever, a reminder of what freedom cost. He hoped future generations would remember, would understand that peace wasn't given, it was fought for. That respect wasn't granted, it was earned. Premier Li Wang's successor, a woman named President Sarah Cole, gave her first major address to the galaxy. She spoke about continuing Wang's work, about building on the foundation purchased with blood, about making sure